Happy early Thanksgiving. How are you?
I'm good. I'm hoping that sound is okay today. We don't have any delays between here and Chicago, where I'm in D.C. How does it sound? You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, usually, what is that called? Is that like a DC delay? Does that happen a lot?
No, not D.C. I know when I'm in Arizona, we got to do something totally different. But hopefully, knock on wood, this goes just fine and no drama. I'd like that on Thanksgiving Eve.
Yeah, it's perfect. All right, so how did you feel after the loss in overtime this week? Were you still upset, or did you feel better because Caleb played well? Are you? Yeah. So tell me.
I felt better because the passing game, not just Caleb. Caleb, yes, the passing game was better, and it seems to have, for 2 weeks now with his new coordinator, have taken a step forward each week, and then maybe displaying some more things. And that's a nice step to take. The offensive line is going to have to get better, but that's going to happen in the offseason when they can make some acquisitions via draft and free agency. So we'll get to that. But I felt better about this past week than obviously the previous 4. My goodness.
I agree.
With 5 losses like that, 3 on the last play of the game. If you just win those 3 games, you have a different season. But maybe they're going to have to maybe the heartache is going to fuel them. We'll see. Some teams react. Tommy knows this better than we will, Silvy. Teams react differently, very differently to this kind of season.
As fans, Mike, how should we feel that? Like I describe my feeling, like losses. Football grief comes in different shapes and sizes, and you want to win every game. But and this was the season where it's time. It's time to win. But now we're relegated to focusing solely, and I think it's the right thing to do as well. We're watching the development of the young quarterback, and almost we're oblivious to wins and losses. Like, that's not how you're supposed to fan.
Well, but that's because we know they're in the best division in football, and they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to make a playoff run.
True. I guess maybe the point I'm making is it's just like the year after year futility that we all have to deal with.
I don't feel this year like I felt the past.
Oh,
I
can read you back because I told messages. You were pretty pissed 3 weeks ago.
That was 3 weeks ago. I told you guys I want to see improvement. I've been steady on that. And so I want to see improvement. The last 2 weeks, despite the horrific outcomes, we've seen that. And I'm not happy losing the games. I'm in a bad mood immediately on Sunday. But the point is, I think, again, how they react to this overall is what's going to determine how we feel about this season. Is it a stepping stone to something better? Or is it just, like every other recent season where you just think there's despair? I don't think that. Not yet. I mean, and I would think, look, they got a real shot at going 4-13. They can play pretty well and get better and still be 4-13. Listen, there are 4 road division games. 3 yet to play. Chances are we're going to lose all 3 of those games.
Yeah, and then the San Francisco.
So that takes you to 10 losses right there.
You don't feel differently about the head coach, though, do you?
No. The head coach has to be gone.
Okay.
So that's like, that has to happen. And I feel kind of bad saying that because I'm not one of those guys who wants to fire everybody every second. But there's been, when you cost your team 2 specific games, and by the way, it may be 3. What are you doing going for 2 in that instance where you're down and you're going to get to a 7-point deficit? A 7-point deficit is not good enough? You'd rather be potentially down 8, which is what happened? I mean, there's just too many stupid things that basically speak to flailing, a sense of desperateness. And there's nothing worse you get from a head coach than a sense of desperation.
You hate this because you hate that everyone goes to analytics these days. Like I didn't blame Eberflus for this because most teams now, when they're chasing 14 in the fourth quarter, their philosophy is going for 2 on the first touchdown. Therefore, they can either cut it to 6 and they have a chance to win it, or if they miss it, they're still within 1 score at 8 and they could still convert it on the second try.
You know what no analytics tell you, Silvy? Analytics don't tell you whether your team's in a great frame of mind or not. Analytics don't tell you whether you've got momentum or not. Analytics don't tell you whether your left tackle is struggling that day or not. I don't want to hear the analytics. You have to gauge your team. That's what I'm talking about, leading men.
Well,
you have to be perceptive enough to say, to hell with the analytics. I'm coaching this team, not some dope who's looking at a computer readout. I'm coaching this team. There's sometimes I thought somebody, who did I think should have gone for 2 this week? There was somebody Washington.
Yeah.
I thought the Commanders should have gone for 2 when they had the momentum and they scored on that brilliant play with 21 seconds left. I thought you go for 2 there.
Well, maybe Eberflus thought too. Look, I don't want to back Eberflus. I'm not in that business. Maybe he even looked at his kicker and said, he's had 2 blocked in the last 2 weeks.
But not point after.
These extra points aren't guaranteed. They're coming off his foot low. I don't trust my blocking. To your point,
yeah, that's the only way. That's the only way the kicker. I thought about that. And if he said that even quietly off the record because he doesn't want to kill his kicker anymore, then I would take it back. But he hadn't had point afters blocked. He had field goals of more than 45 yards blocked because the trajectory of those kicks obviously is different than when you're hitting a ball from 30 yards. That's why he should have gone for more yards with an extra down and timeout against Green Bay.
Right.
And to not do that and to double down publicly afterward is stupid. It's sort of like really you're a smarter guy than that. Don't give me that. So, you can't have it both ways. And just,
I was going to ask you, if the ineptitude continues and the change is ultimately what is going to take place at the end of the year, how confident are you that Ryan Poles is going to be able to hire the guy he wants, regardless of whether or not it's a personality that doesn't go over well with some of the people in the building, or it's at a price tag that others aren't really used to being comfortable with?
Well, listen, there's no price tag anymore that's out of line.
I agree with you, but you and I may see this differently than they do.
Well, but yes, Tommy, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But at this point, all right, where they spent all this money and you've drafted a guy number 1, and you're going to spend a lot more money, if you can't cover your investment by getting the best coach you can get, then
totally
leave the
agree.
building. Just
Absolutely.
Get out.
Well, I even said
so
to the
2 parts.
I said to the guys, Mike, I said, look, if I'm Ryan Poles and he's entrusted with picking the next coach, again, if that's hypothetically the route they go, and he comes to a conclusion after extensive contemplation, because of all things, Ryan hasn't made all the decisions he's made, haven't worked, but I believed in his process for 99.9% of them. I think he's gone through the right process to come to his conclusions.
I do too.
If he comes to the conclusion that this guy, Coach X, is the right guy and he wants $15 million, or he comes to the conclusion that this guy's the right guy, but he's got a prickly personality that may not mesh with yours.
He's got to go to the mat for that guy.
And I said to Sylvia and the guys, I said, if I get rebuffed on that, that would be grounds for me to leaving the organization.
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
And again, I'm not suggesting that Ryan has made all the right decisions and should be in there swinging the hammer.
Yeah, I'm not so down. I'm not down on Ryan when it comes to decisions. And I even understand the dilemma of keeping Eberflus going into this season, given the way the team played the last half of last season. I get it. It turns out to have been the wrong decision, but I get it. But going forward,
there can be no hurdles to whatever hire he wants to make if he's entrusted.
Amen.
Do you have an early favorite that you like, that you have a personal
preference?
No,
because I think people – look, I covered a team that had 3 future head coaches in the building. It had Shanahan and it had, my man in Los Angeles.
McVay.
I mean, McVay. I mean, that staff had
probably.
3. And LaFleur
Yeah.
had 3 future. So and nobody knew any of them. People knew Shanahan and McVay because they were the sons of. But nobody knew. People thought Shanahan in real time. They thought, yeah, this guy's gonna be good. But McVay and LaFleur, people weren't walking around town saying that. So no, I'm not into hiring a famous coach. I'm not. I don't care about that. They got to get it right. That's it.
Absolutely.
The only criteria.
Yeah.
It's the only bar.
Before we jump to, we want to do something with you on moments that we want to cut from our memories. But is there anything else on your mind that you want to bring up that's been bugging you or that you're happy about before we move on to this thing?
Ooh, I'm scared now. I'm happy about the Northwestern field hockey team winning an NCAA championship, the second one in 3 years for Tracy Fuchs and her team. When your school wins an NCAA championship, to the people of that place, and I'm of that place, it's a big deal.
Yes.
And so women's field hockey, which has been in the finals 4 straight years, and when it comes to stick sports, lacrosse and field hockey at Northwestern have been in every Final Four since 2020. It's pretty good.
It's pretty.
That is great.
Pretty
Pretty
great. Congratulations.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So this is just, I think this is very impactful, and it's still making an impact today. So what we have done this year, Michael, with partnering with Great Clips, is we've counted down the 50 moments that we want to cut from our memory. These are like heartbreaking moments or tough losses that Chicago sports has had in the last 50 years. And we've relived them. And we think that all of us, this affected all of us because Waddle was here at one of these games that happened in this series. This was 30 years ago. And you'll know what I mean when you hear these highlights. So listen to the highlights.
Wait a minute, what year? So 30 years ago is 1994.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 1994. Well, so the Cubs and White Sox weren't any good in 94. Oh, the Bulls were. Madison Square Garden foul called on Scottie Pippen, bogus foul.
And the stuff leading up to that. And the stuff leading up to that. All that.
And
So
yeah.
All right. So hang in there. Hang in there.
Okay,
hey. So this is that. You knocked it out right there. This is the 7th moment. It's brought to you by Great Clips. Let's play the open and then let's play the highlights.
Waddle and Silvy share 50 moments over the past 50 years that Chicago sports fans wish they could cut from their memories. Presented by Great Clips. Number 7.
1.8 left, no timeouts left for the Bulls. Myers triggers an inbounds pass. Kukoc for the win! It goes! Oh, brother!
Why was Bulls All-Star and team leader Scottie Pippen on the bench at the crucial climax of last night's showdown with New York? Channel 7's Brad Palmer has the story. Phil Jackson believes Scottie Pippen's defection was the culmination of a number of frustrating incidents leading up to Patrick Ewing's game-tying basket with less than 2 seconds left in the game. The Bulls called a timeout and designed a play for Tony Kukoc. Scottie Pippen refused to go back in. Instead, he went to the end of the bench, necessitating a second timeout. Pippen and Jackson got into a cussing match, but Scottie still refused to budge.
It wasn't pretty much Phil taking me out of the game. It was like, we exchanged words and I just took a seat.
So it was your decision based on frustration? Scottie, Phil just said you weren't in because you asked out of the play.
Yeah, pretty much.
Why you weren't involved in it?
Exactly.
When you say exchange words, what happened?
I have no comments on that.
But the Bulls survived without Scottie. Tony Kukoc hit a 22-footer to win it for the Bulls. And later, Pippen admitted it was a well-called play by Jackson.
The Bulls lead by 1. Starks, hops out, gets it. That's what's left in the game. Starks, on top. Davis, a long 2. He fouled! He got fouled! Can you believe this? A foul with 2.1. Hubert Davis on the foul. Scottie Pippen on the foul, his 4th. 2.1 on the clock. A wide look at it. He missed up. Phil cannot believe it. Scottie Pippen sitting down. He can't believe it. And if looks could kill, Phil Jackson just staring down Hugh Hollins. The Knicks hang on here against the Chicago Bulls. New York wins Game 5. Starks and Mason all pumped up. Scottie Pippen's going to come back on the floor and
He's going to say something to Hugh Hollins.
5 seconds away from the Knicks dethroning the Chicago Bulls. They're standing and cheering toward the Garden, but it will be the New York Knicks going up against the Indiana Pacers. In the Eastern Conference Final, the Knicks have defeated the Bulls 87-77.
That was so tough because that season was enjoyable considering that Michael had retired to begin that year right in October at that White Sox game, the playoff game to start 1993-94. And Pippen was so damn good that whole year. He was MVP of the All-Star game. He had such a great year. And then the 1.8-second fiasco. But then they came back and they should have won Game 5. And then that was dubbed the Phantom Foul involving Hubert Davis and Hugh Hollins as the official. The Bulls would win Game 6. They lost Game 7 in the Eastern Conference semifinals, Michael. What do you like? It has so many, and it still is creating the feuds because of then the documentary that came out with The Last Dance. Scottie then doubled down in saying that he called the play for Tony because he was racist, if you remember. And so, like, even 30 years later, Pippen is still arguing with people over what happened in 1994.
Well, I kind of dismissed that, the Pippen part. Let me just say, I was at all those games. I was at all 7 games. The foul call by Hugh Hollins. Hugh Hollins' name is not allowed to be mentioned in my home. Talk about unprofessional behavior. I mean, I'm covering basketball. I refused to speak to him after that. I just wouldn't even say hello to the man. That's how immature and angry I was over that. And just hearing it made me angry. The Tony Kukoc shot is probably the greatest moment not involving Michael or Derrick Rose in Bulls history. I can't get over it because the Bulls would have gone on to the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana instead of the Knicks. It would change sort of the history of basketball. I have asked Michael if the Bulls had gotten to the finals that year and played against a team, no matter what happened, would you have still come back? And he has told me yes, he would have. But I dismiss all the Scottie stuff, and here's why. Look, I had an up and down relationship with Scottie for a long time. Because Scottie was hypersensitive. You think he's hypersensitive now. He was hypersensitive in real time.
Sure.
But he's such a great player. And I came to understand it over time. The first show I did for ESPN, the first basketball show I did was with Scottie Pippen and Dan Patrick. And it was a joy to work with Scottie. He is one of the brilliant minds ever in basketball. Just in terms of analyzing the game and how it's played and what should be done offensively, defensively, in terms of talent and position. He's just got a great mind. Mm-hmm. It was a joy working with him. I worked with him later on Countdown. And then all this stuff would come up. I know Scottie's original positions. See, Scottie can't try to convince me he actually believes LeBron is the greatest player because I know what he believes. I've sat there with him for years. I know what Scottie believes. I know how bad he feels about 1.8 seconds left. I know why dredging it up again has hurt him because he's told me. So I don't listen to all the stuff that comes later about what he says and Phil was raised. I can't. I just don't. And if I was sitting with Scottie right now, I would say, Scottie, just please stop. You're one of the greatest players in the history of basketball. You don't need to do this. You don't. You got more championships than any star players out there except for Michael Jordan, a handful of Celtics, starting with Bill Russell. So stop. Just stop it. Let your brilliant performances speak and stop the nonsense. Because what he started in this hypersensitivity is nonsense. And anybody who's listened to him, I can go back and get the tapes. I know what Scottie says. He was saying it to me. We're sitting on a set together for years. I started working with Scottie in 2004. I don't have to believe this nonsense he comes up with now. I already know what matters to him and what he believes, for real. So that has no play in how I feel about that series. That series was stolen from the Bulls by Hugh Hollins, and that foul call with 2.1 seconds left on a Hubert Davis jump shot that had left his hand, and there was no foul. And the Bulls won that game, and the Knicks would have to go back and take Game 6 from the Bulls in Chicago, which I don't think they would have been able to do.
No.
That's the bottom line on that for me.
It's so well said, Michael, because to me, everything Phil Jackson used to call Scottie Pippen the smartest player he ever coached. What Scottie Pippen represented in those late 80s and early 90s teams and the late 90s was what led to the current modern day basketball player of positionless basketball.
That's right.
He was
right.
He was the first. And if he would have not sat for 1.8 and would not have been jealous, like the position would have always been, there was no more underrated player than Scottie Pippen. Everything that he did, but he let the jealousy.
Silvy, I think he recovered. I think he recovered from that.
He did in the late 90s.
As bad as that was, people still went back because there were more championships to come, 3 of them, and those championships are not won without Scottie.
Of course,
the people let it go for the longest. Now, Scottie's beef, trust me, I know this, is that it came up again in the Last Dance. So, there are 2 people that have beef, and you know who they are, Scottie and Isaiah. And basically, they don't want to have had it dredged up again all these years later. And I've had both of them say to me, I don't want to have to explain this to my children. And by the way, how about a nod to Scottie just being a dad to help produce that son who's one hell of a player.
He had a triple-double, a 30-point game at United Center. Yeah,
he had 30 and 10 the other night.
Yeah, at the UC.
How about that? And by the way, let me just tell you about Scottie, the basketball mind. So Scottie had an AAU team about 8 years ago. And this is when my nephew Jordan and little Scottie were besties. And they were playing, together on somebody else's AAU team. And Scottie, like a lot of really great basketball players, they look at AAU basketball and they just go, oh, my God, I don't know if I want my kid approaching the game that way and learning the game that way. So Scottie came up with his own team. And Scottie calls my brother Don and says, I want Jordan playing on my team. And Don says, Scottie, that's great, thank you, but you don't owe us that. And Scottie says, no, I want Jordan on the team. And my brother basically says, is Jordan good enough to play on this team, blah, 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 blah. And Scottie says, here's the rules. I want great kids with great basketball IQs who don't have blanks for parents. No bad parents, no bad influences, no bad coaches, no intolerance. We're not going to have that. We're going to have kids who have a great time and want to learn basketball. And I'm going to put that team together. And he did. Would show you at his best Scottie's intentions and what he believed about how basketball should be learned and consumed and played. The dude is really an important figure in the modern history of basketball. But it's not even the 1.8 seconds that he unraveled. It's what he's done since then. All this stupid nonsense, attacking Michael, and it's just, dude, you partnered, you co-authored the second greatest chapter in the history of pro basketball after the Celtics. Don't undo this. I have been on the phone and said some of this stuff to him. Mm-hmm. Scottie, don't do this. And you can sometimes get him, and he's hurt. He's legitimately hurt. And you can say, hey, listen, none of that undoes what you've done. And he'll say, you're right. I appreciate it. I apologize to Scottie for things I have said on the air and in print. And Scottie has said to me, hey, man, we're past it. You don't owe me that. I'm like, yeah, I do, actually. So we're not talking about somebody who is irrational all the time and incapable of back and forth conversation at the highest level about the craft. We're not, because he is. And so you guys have no idea how much angst I have over what has happened. Like, you can't even properly celebrate, as we saw when the Bulls try to celebrate it.
Right.
You can't even properly celebrate the greatest chapter in Chicago sports history because you have so many beefs and dissatisfaction and Scottie and Jerry Krause, and it's like, oh my God, really? So it's all hard to stomach. But Scottie, don't believe any of the stuff you hear now that comes out and is in Esquire magazine. He doesn't believe any of that. And you know he doesn't believe it. All you got to do is go back and go to YouTube and look at what he believes and what he has said in Real Moments 5 and 8, just before The Last Dance, about everything that matters. Scottie Pippen was too smart a basketball player to believe anything that's coming out of his mouth now.
It's well done. That's why we wanted to have you on during this. Michael, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, you guys. Be well. Happy Thanksgiving.
Same
You too.
to you.
Happy Thanksgiving. Really good stuff there.